basketball in particular?
My who?
Influences.
Not too many influences. My sports hero was Jim Thorpe. So I didn't really pay too much attention to basketball growing up where we were. I mean, we knew it was around, but if you recall, there was only 3 TV stations and no radio, and you know, I think the second pro game that I ever saw, I was in it. So that tells you how much I know about it.
Dave, before I ask you a question, I'd just like to say it's an honor and a privilege for Hollie and I to be on this panel with you. As a coach, I tried to have my players emulate the tremendous qualities that you had. You were intense. You surprised the players at the Celtics when you were a rookie with your intensity and your enthusiasm. And I worked camp with you, and I've been to some of your clinics when you were at Regis, and you're just an outstanding person. And
Not a clinician. You didn't do too much in the clinic, did you?
No. But you're a quality guy, and
Coach Nelson left out. Coach Nelson left out a big stat. Actually, he said there's 5 major categories. Actually, there's 6. Fouling is one of them. I used that. I fouled out over 100 games. Right? Nobody fouls out of games anymore.
It's
crazy. I told David, I said, if you lead a team in 5 categories, that means you're on a pretty bad team.
David, my question for you is, how do you feel your championship Celtic team would do with the championship teams in the present?
We'd have beat the Warriors. I don't doubt it. We'd have beat them. Because it would have beat that little skinny guy kept going in there and trying to throw those little flip shots. He'd have been on his ass a couple, 3 times. Hey, that's just the way it was. You know, first fight I was in the NBA, we didn't even get thrown out of the game. You know, he just went to the locker room, got stitched up, and came back. It was a little bit more like hockey. Now there's too much money involved, so you got to protect the assets. But, you know, I'd say if you try to go back from one era to the other, what you'd have to say is let's play half the game with a 3-point play and half the game without it. And that would kind of even it out a little bit. They know how to play that 3-point game a little better than we do. 3-point shot, yeah, you can have that. That's a bad shot, you know. These guys are shooting, I think the total one game was they were 19 for 61 combined for 3-point play. To me, I don't get too excited about that, you know, and so I'd like to see it a little bit different where, and I said this from the beginning with the 3-point play, to get all the variations of the offenses in play, you got to want to attack the basket more. Now everybody runs the same stuff. I can't believe a coach even calls a timeout to call play, because then you go out and it looks like the same stuff they've been running the whole game. He wasted a timeout. But I think the 3-point play, when they put it in, it would have been great if they could have played 3 quarters straight up, and in the last period put the 3-point play in. Because they brought it in to keep people in their seats, buy a few extra beers or whatever it may be, and have the other team be able to get back into it. You know, not for the whole game to be dominated by trying to get somebody a 3-pointer in the corner. That's my vote. That's what I do. I'm sticking to it.
All right. What lessons did you learn from Red Auerbach and Tom Nielsen?
Red Auerbach, Tommy Heinsohn. I couldn't have been a luckier guy to get drafted by the Celtics because they needed somebody at the time. Russell had retired. They spent a year without him. So they were looking for somebody to try to anchor. And I had always played center. I was glad to be able to get on that team because they had a system. You know, Red had about 6 plays with some variations. Tommy has adopted those and then added a couple more things based on what he wanted to do and expand our team in the way we attacked. So I was lucky, and so I got to play a lot right off the bat. And that's how you learn. You get those reps in. So I was lucky to do that. Again, foul out of like 16 games in that first year.
Dave, who was your toughest matchup?
The toughest matchup was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That guy, he could, I mean, I had no Well, what am I going to do against a guy like that? He's the greatest scorer probably in history of the game other than Wilt Chamberlain, those two guys. And I got Wilt when he was older, but Jabbar, I had him the whole time when he was in prime time. So I know the first 4 games I played against him my rookie year, he got 40 on me every time. We didn't lose all those games, but he got 40, you know, and finally, we were pretty smart back then. We go, okay, you know, guys, he likes the basketball on this side of the floor. This is before he had a hook shot going to the baseline. He just wanted to get it on that left side coming down, work his way in, and work that magic. I said, would it be possible if we just keep the ball on that side of the floor as much as possible? Even if you got to overplay the guy and say, hey, go ahead and drive, keep it over there. And, you know, then after that, maybe he got 36 on me.
Yeah, you shut him down now in the championship.
Oh, I shut him down. Oh, boy. I shut him right down.
From what I remember, you fronted him.
That was a pretty gutsy move.
Yes, it was. You beat him like 124 to 78 or something.
Not to, well, no, it wasn't that much, but yeah, that was a gutsy move because we have been playing for 4 years straight, 6 games in the playoffs, and so the last game of the season, we decided we're going to change the strategy. And, you know, we adopted it after the game on Saturday night, or Friday night, which was a double overtime, and Kareem won with a hook shot. Then Sunday afternoon on Mother's Day in Milwaukee, we just put it into play without practicing or watching film or anything. But we had a good enough experienced team, we could just figure it out. It's not rocket science.
And what did you enjoy most about working with the women in the Chicago Sky in the WNBA?
Why you look at me like that? She's waiting for something, I know. I liked it. I mean, it was challenging. First of all, I had been coaching for a couple of years, and I have 2 daughters, so I'm familiar with, you know, watching girls play basketball a little bit on a high school level, small college level. But I was also able to guide it, getting involved in the draft, picking and choosing, and working as a general manager as well. So that was kind of fun. We promoted the first year, a new franchise in the WNBA. So a lot of that together was a challenge. Plus, got to live in Chicago, right? You know, in the Greek area of town, and Chicago's a great city. You know, I mean, as a sports place or even anything, it's one of the best cities in the country. So it was fun to be able to go up there and do that and get that experience as well. And the women, they're the same as the guys. They're pretty damn competitive, and they want to get better, and they want to be told the right things, the truth. Give them some way to win, put them in the comfortable spots, you know, practiced hard. So a lot of that's the same. It's just the game's played below the rim, so it's just a whole different ballgame.
You were a taxi cab driver.
One night.
And I was wondering why you chose to do that.
I had never done it before. So I've been in a lot of cabs, you know, but I've driven buses and tractors and all this other stuff. I never drove a cab. So I had a buddy of mine was up from Kentucky visiting. We were in the middle of a playoff series with San Antonio. So I said, hey, beautiful day, let's go out and get a cab, $35, you know, put gas in it, bring it back with a full tank, and you keep whatever you make. So he went around and picked people up, and he wasn't that attractive, so I had to get him out of the car because people wouldn't get in there with us. You know, one of these noses over here, you know, a boxer friend of mine from Kentucky. So he walked the streets, and I worked it a little bit. We met, had lunch on the Boston Common, you know, and continued on. And then this guy got in a cab because he heard that I was on the shortwave, that I was driving a cab. The amazing thing is he went out of a hockey game in the Boston Garden. Poppendick was his name, Sports Illustrated guy. And not then, but later on. And he started walking the streets of Boston looking for my cab, and he found it. That's the amazing part of the whole thing. The story, that could actually happen. And so he said, I want to go to, I don't know, I'll pass BU. I said, that's a pretty good ride, you know, a decent fare. So I'm on the Mass Pike going out there. He tells me what he's all about. I said, okay, now we're going to take you right to the top of the Tobin Bridge, and I'm going to let you out right there. And he was working for the Globe, so he was going to report it. So I figured I'd call my friend Eddie Hollie, who I knew where he was. We didn't have cell phones then, but I knew which Chinese restaurant he was at, probably. This was probably 10 o'clock at night. And I found him and I told him the story, so the Herald ran it, so did the Globe. So he didn't get a scoop.
That's great. Yeah.
What are some of your fondest memories of playing with the Celtics?
Fondest memories of playing with the Boston Celtics? Well, there were so many of them. Being able to listen to John Conley play, the organ. And that, really the atmosphere of the Boston Garden is what I'm trying to explain. You know, there was sort of, today, I tell you what, I go to a game, I went to a game in Orlando, a playoff game one time on an NBA deal, and I had to leave because it was so noisy. It was hurting my ears because the music was so loud, everything was so loud. I went in the room and watched the rest of the game, couldn't stand it. What I remember from the Boston Garden is that it looked like there was a little bit of smoke, you know, a din, sort of a mist or haze, and the place was full. John Kylie's doing his thing. There's no music. There's no center board doing any kind of promotions. There's no signs. All that is Rita Spivey and her friends got different posters all over the place. And it was quiet, and you relate the fan thing and the player thing was more intimate. When you're sitting around, you can hear people up in the audience making suggestions to you. You know, and most of the arenas were like that, but Boston was so special in that all the things that had gone on in that building. So that's really what I take with me is that. And of course, the action is the most fun thing I've ever done, is to be able to play against that caliber player, you know, in that environment.
Dave, what do you think about the salaries that the present players are receiving in free agency?
I told Rasheed Wallace when I was working at the Pistons, I said, you know, you make more money in half a season than I made playing 800, 900 games, you know, so it sort of puts it into perspective. But it's going to get even crazier, but I don't fault the players. I think it's got to go someplace, and money's there with TV and all, you know, so don't be greedy, help the needy. That's what I say to the owners. Got to feed our families, right, David? But I don't begrudge them. I think there's, in a way, there's a sense of more pressure on them, you know, because of the amount of money that they make and the importance. There's an awful lot of hype around it, and you know, all your activities and actions are circumspect. It's a different kind of a world, you know. We could go be in Philadelphia, and the only people that knew we were there was the people that went to the game, you know, and that was about it. So it was just that kind of a different deal.
Dave, I know that your dream was to play for the University of Kentucky.
Was not.
It was not. But in this day and age, did you think John Calipari would have recruited you?
I might not have been able to get into school. That's why I went to Florida State. They call that Free Shoes University. I can't take much of this too seriously.
How difficult was it for you when you were the player coach for the Celtics?
Well, first thing you got to figure out, where do I dress? With them or with the coaches? And then you got to figure out who's going to be doing what when you're playing. And then when you come back, do you let the coaches still do what they're doing, or do you take over? And then, you know, do you take yourself out? Do you run a lot of plays for yourself? Yeah, that one, the last one was probably the most difficult. It was different though. I had just gotten married to him. My wife says, yeah, you used to go to sleep and he'd wake up and write plays, and then you'd look down on the floor in the morning and go, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. You know how that works.
So what were your feelings when you were inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame in '91?
Well, it's a real honor to be inducted into a Hall of Fame. So, you know, Not everybody gets that privilege, so you got to take it for what it's worth and feel like maybe you had an impact on the people that are involved with basketball, not so much the general population, but the people that really like the game. The whole thing about people forget what you say or do, but not how you make them feel, and I think that's part of why they put me in, because a lot of people just like the way I played. Not that I had, 18 and 14, not 13 and whatever you said, 17 and 13. You round up. So, you're a stat man. You got to round up.
So noted.
Dave, how did you feel when you were selected as one of the top 50 players during the 50th anniversary of the NBA?
Cost me a lot of money to get that on. The funniest thing that happened, this was good. Bill Russell never signed autographs, not for anybody. So we're in this little room, and Bill's over there, and he's got some of his marketing partners and stuff that are around him. He comes over, he get this big book. He says, "Hey, Dave, did you sign this?" I said, "Bill, I don't sign autographs." That was like the best thing that could ever happen. That was an opening for us. Guy, he just gave me that big old belly laugh.
Dave, you retired 3 times. After the second time, you took a 2-year layoff.
Yeah.
And then Don Nelson asked you to play with the Milwaukee Bucks.
I felt bad that I wasn't able to play because by the time the season ended, on and off, I had my legs so taped up, and he said, "I can't, I just can't see you helping it, what I mean, a little bit too beat up." So he wouldn't let me play, but we lost that series, and it was such a close game, and I think I could have helped him a little bit, not making a couple of mistakes that were made by our younger players, and that sort of a thing. Give him a little bit more ammunition to go after him with matchups and et cetera. But it was a good experience. I like Milwaukee. Small town, had a good time out there. Mellie's a great coach. He's been involved in more basketball games as a coach and a player than anybody, I think, in the history of the game. I mean, he's one of the top guys in wins, but also in losses, I always try to remember. David, did you ever play for Nellie?
Dave, how does it feel when you walk into the present facility in Boston and see number 18 hanging from the ceiling, the banner, number 18?
Normally I don't look at it, but I know it's there, and I know those 2 championships are there, so it's a nice remembrance for some folks. Sometimes when I was in with other teams and I'd come into the arena, I'd wait to see if they would say anything. Most of the time they didn't because they don't care. But that sort of a thing. But that's okay too. So I'd have to remind them, tell them, lavish some stories on.